All right, well, we do have a quorum, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. This meeting will come to order. This is a meeting of the Bloomington Monroe County Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Committee for March 2023. Mr. Rubling, would you please call the roll?
Bannock. Here. Clements.
Roll call.
Oh, did you say Margaret Clements?
Yes.
Yes, here. Thank you.
Copper. Here. Kinsey.
Here.
Do we have
Horn.
the volume
Here. McKim. Here. Nickel. Here. Rydervan.
Here.
Samples.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Wallman. He is here. He just sent a chat. I'll figure that out here in
Okay.
a second. Ridge.
Here.
Bowling.
on? Here. I think that's everybody. We have a full house, even though not everyone
Mr.
is
Chair,
present.
Could
Ms.
we,
Rydervan.
could we please have the people who are here as proxies identify themselves as such for the record?
Yes, is there anyone who is here as a proxy identified as over there?
Neil Copper, I'm proxying for Mayor Hamilton.
And
Hi, Nate Nickel. I'm a proxy for Adam Wason, the Public Works Director for the City of Bloomington.
okay,
Thank you.
anyone else who's a proxy?
Chris Wallman is a proxy,
For,
the director of the Seymour District.
okay. I'm having trouble hearing everybody online and on mic, so if everyone would please get close to the mic, and if we could have the volume up on the Zoom, that would be much appreciated. I'll go now through the agenda. We will have approval of the agenda. We'll have nominations and election of officers for the calendar year. We'll have approval of minutes, bless you, from previous meetings, communications from the chair and vice chair, reports from officers and/or committees. Under reports from MPO staff, we'll go over the fiscal year 2024 to 2028 TIP call for projects and the fiscal year 2023-2024 Unified Planning Work Program draft. Under old business, we'll cover the BMC MPO fiscal year 2022 through 2026 TIP amendments. Number one, State Road 45 to 46 Arlington-Kinzer intersection improvement. And number two, NDOT repair, replace lighting with LED at various locations in the Seymour District. Under new business, we'll hear the BMC MPO fiscal year 2022 to 2026 TIP amendments. The first, State Road 45 from the bypass to Pete Ellis Drive. Second, State Road 45 intersection to Pete Ellis Drive. Third, Liberty Drive connection to Cars Farm Trail. Fourth, Bloomington Transit 40-foot replacement battery electric buses. Fifth, Bloomington Transit bus stop accessibility improvements. And sixth, the Bloomington Transit fixed route service expansion, electric vehicles, et cetera. Then we'll follow that with public comment on matters not included on the agenda, non-voting items. Communications from committee members on matters not included on the agenda, including communications and topic suggestions for future agendas. And then we'll go over upcoming meetings and then adjourn. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Motion and a second. We have people online, so we need to have a roll call vote.
Copper.
Yes.
Horn.
Yes.
McKim.
Yes.
Rydervan.
Yes.
Samples.
Yes.
Wallman. Hold on. Yes, he's here now.
Oh, good.
Wallman.
Unmute. He's not, there he is. Say something now. Yes. Very good.
Volan.
Who?
Volan.
Oh, yes.
Bannock.
Yes.
Clements.
Yes.
Kinsey.
Yes.
Nickel.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yeah.
Ridge.
Yes.
Sorry.
Is that everyone? Thank you. All right, the agenda passes. We would now go to the next item on the agenda, nominations and election of officers for the calendar year. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Lisa Ridge.
Ms. Reiterband,
I nominate Lisa Ridge.
Second.
a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations for chair? Mr. Horn.
I'd nominate Steve Boland for chair.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other nominations for chair? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will go to a roll call vote. Please state either Ridge or Volan. Mr. Robling.
Samples.
Say the name.
Yes, please. That would be Ridge.
Wallman. Volan.
Volan.
Clements.
Ridge.
Copper.
Bolin.
Horn.
Boland.
McKim.
Ridge.
Nickel.
Volan.
Reiterband.
Ridge.
Thomas.
Ridge.
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 Bannock. Kinsey.
Boland.
6-6.
661.
We are in an impasse. I'm not sure what to do here. We can have another vote. I'm open to suggestions at this point. Coin flip. What's that? I didn't hear that. A coin flip. Is that even in order? Is that in our bylaws? I'm open to suggestions as to what else we should do, because I don't think that's in our bylaws. I'm entertaining any motion.
In a hope of moving this on, I would alter a vote. I just would like to move on from this issue. I mean, alternating between chairs would be a consideration between county and city in the future.
If we can have a 1-minute recess. Do you want to talk? A 1-minute recess. All right, I'm going to ask for a second roll call vote, but beforehand I'm going to say that in the spirit of collegiality, I'm going to change my vote to Ridge, but I'm going to make a statement, which is I deplore the conflict between city and county, and I want to say very explicitly that it would cost a lot more for the MPO to have a separate staff that's separate from the city of Bloomington. It would cost an enormous amount to our budget. And I, for one, firmly do not believe that the city somehow controls or manages the MPO. This is a collaborative effort. And I've done my best to try to run the MPO board in a collegial manner. And I would urge my colleagues who are in the county that we are not your enemy. With that, I'm going to ask Mr. Robling to call the roll call vote again. Please state your name, preference, Ridge or Volan.
Kinsey.
Ridge.
McKim.
Ridge.
Reiterband.
Ridge.
Thomas.
Ridge.
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 Volan.
Ridge.
Wallman. Samples.
Ridge.
Nickel.
Volan.
Horn,
Ridge.
Bannock,
Ridge.
Clements,
Ridge.
Copper.
Ridge.
What is the total?
11-1-1.
Thank
Ridge.
you. Ms. Ridge will be the new chair. Let's now go to nominations for vice chair.
For vice chair.
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? They nominated me. Any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, we can't do a voice vote again because our member's online. So we'll have to have a roll call vote, Mr. Robling.
Bannock.
Yes.
Bannock, sorry.
You have to say his name?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's hard. I know it is.
Sorry, I have to look down and, here, let's see if I can do it this way. Samples.
Yes.
Yes, it's fine.
Thomas. Clements. Clemens.
Yes.
Copper.
Yes.
Kinsey.
Yes.
Ridge.
Yes.
Volan.
Yes.
Wallman.
Yes.
Reiterban.
Yes.
Nickel.
Yes.
McKim.
Yes.
Horn. I think I missed.
Yes.
Sorry. Thank
That's
you.
unanimous. I appreciate it. We are now going to switch seats. Unless you want me to run the meeting.
Do we have to?
Yeah, you're the chair. Yeah.
So the next item on the agenda is approval of minutes of February 10th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment? And I believe we'll have to have a roll vote.
Wallman.
Yes.
Volan.
Yes.
Clements.
Yes.
Copper.
Yes.
Horn.
Yes.
Kinsey.
Yes.
Nickel.
Yes.
Samples.
Yes.
McKim.
Yes.
Bannock.
Yes.
Reiterban.
Yes.
Ridge.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Sorry, 14-0.
Thank you. Communications from the chair and vice chair. I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to chair the MPO board again. I know in my absence, if I have to be out at another meeting or something, Steve will run the meeting as efficiently as he has the last year or two. So we'll move on because I know we have a big agenda. Vice Chair?
No additional comments. Thank you.
Reports from officers and/or committees. Oh, they're not. So CAC, do we have a report from CAC?
Sure, the CAC met and we reviewed the amendments that are before you this afternoon and recommended all of them for approval by the policy committee.
Thank you, Sarah. Do we have representative from the TAC?
Yes, I can provide a TAC report. TAC met on February 22nd and also was able to review the proposed amendments and new business items and voted in favor of those, and also had an opportunity to talk a little bit about the Unified Work Program, and certainly realizing that MPO staff has been down a person here recently and has a tremendous workload, but just looking ahead, we were both a freight study and a crash report were things that the TAC was interested in working with MPO staff on and getting some momentum on both those areas. So that's the only reports I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, reports from MPO staff. First item is fiscal year 2024 to 2028 Transportation Improvement Program call for projects.
Okay, the MPO staff issued a call for projects for the fiscal year 2024-2028 Transportation Improvement Program. On January 6th, the deadline submission was February 10th. We received all of our applications. They're still in processing. We received applications from Rural Transit, Bloomington Transit, Monroe County, the City of Bloomington. We didn't receive any applications from Indiana University, IUT, Indiana University Public Transit. We're still working on the receipt of everything because the priority given to us by the Department of Transportation Central Office was for the work program. So therefore, the TAC and the CEC will see a draft fiscal year 2024-2028 Transportation Improvement Program at the end of this month. We will try and work behind the scenes to see if we can achieve fiscal constraint prior to those meetings. There's no guarantee here on that, and in fact, I don't even know the answer to that question right now because we haven't balanced the equations yet. But all I know is we have everything there. We've got them punched in. We've got a number of corrections to be made on the part of the key puncher, myself. But other than that, yeah, we will have a draft program for consideration for the committees, 2 committees at the end of this month, and then this committee, the second Friday of next month, will have a draft transportation improvement program ready for submission to the Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, and Federal Transit Administration. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Pat. The second item is fiscal year 2023 to 2024 Unified Planning Work Program draft.
Okay, the Department of Transportation Central Office accelerated our schedule by about 3 weeks. So normally we would have this before you in a draft form ready for submission, but instead they required us to make the submission at the end of January, the 1st of February, so we did. So we've got the submission here, but in your packet, and we'll discuss this later, we have the draft work program, and I'll go into the details then. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions on either one of those topics from the board? Okay. Moving on to old business. Bloomington, Monroe County, MPO, fiscal year 2022 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program TIP amendments. The first one is DES number 1700198, State Road 45 to 46, Arlington, Kinzer, intersection improvement and added travel lanes.
Okay, this is the project which the committee had postponed last month. This intersection is located between Interstate 69 and Kinzer Pike. I mean, the easiest way to describe it is the J-turn area where the Super 8 motel is. That's the easiest way to describe it. And that is a safety project. And then Chris Wallman is here from the Seymour District to answer any questions if you've got any about the project itself.
So do we have any questions for Chris on this project? I know it was tabled last month for more information.
Can you remind me why it was that we postponed this last month? What information was lacking that we wanted?
Yeah, I think an old amendment form had been uploaded to the packet last month.
Yes.
That's why we asked it to look last month.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Seymour District staff had inadvertently sent us an old application which said fiscal year 2022. Therefore, and Chris had kindly uploaded the correct information, but we were already in the meeting at the time. So therefore, that's why we put it back on the agenda.
Thank you. The other item is DES number 2101785, NDOT repair, replace lighting with LED at various locations in Seymour District. If I remember right, I think there was questions about the glare of the LEDs at these locations, then that was maybe a concern of a board member. Maybe Chris could talk about that discussion.
I think there was some comments also about what the project entails. This is a district-wide lighting modernization project, so the vast majority of lighting fixtures in the Seymour District are high-pressure sodium lights, not so energy efficient, so that's an outdated technology, and it's expensive and pain. So this is purely going around and changing out those high-pressure sodium lights for LED technology. So LEDs are they're more efficient, reduce expenses and such. So in the Bloomington MPO area, I think there's just one location where this was happening. Like I said, this was a district-wide contract. So this will be at I-69 and State Road 37 intersection. And this is roadway lighting.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions from the board?
Comment, if that's allowed, and that is, there are more and more studies about how the brightness of LED lights actually reduces the field of vision because the brightness restricts or constricts the pupils of the eye, and therefore you have reduced visual field. And other areas in the country are going away from them as far as use on streets because of this problem. And so I just want to say that I will be voting no. So, thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Any other comments, Steve?
Yeah, I would actually like to ask Ms. Clements if she could send us an article sometime soon that describes.
Various members of the committee, but it was covered on NPR and PBS. You can Google
Wait,
it.
you have sent something to us already?
Not to you, but to.
Yeah, I'm asking if you could forward
I can
an example
forward
of an
you.
article to
Sure.
the committee. Thank you.
I'll send it to you directly, and then you can distribute it, okay? Or to Lisa, you and Lisa.
I mean, I'm fine. I'm sure other members would be interested too.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm curious. So, Chris, am I right in saying that this is the overhead lighting that lights that intersection, one of the biggest crash areas in our community? Is that the intersection we're talking about, and we're talking about making it more visible? Is that correct?
I don't think it's going to make it much more visible than what it already exists. So there are a number of lights at the interchange currently. That interchange was redone when I-69 went through. This is just a modernization of our lighting, so we can reduce energy consumption and still provide a safe intersection, safely lit intersection.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board on this topic? Jeff?
Should we have a separate motion for each, since one member has indicated that she'd like to vote against?
That's up to divide the question, I think.
So we will divide them out and vote on each item 1 and 2 separately?
There should be a motion to do that.
Okay.
Well, there's no motion on.
There's no motion.
These are two separate items on the agenda. I could make an individual motion for either of them, which I will. I move we approve DES number 1700198.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the board? Any public comment or anybody online? Seeing none, a roll call vote?
Nickel.
Yes.
Ryder Band.
Yes?
Samples.
Yes.
Ridge.
Yes.
Bannock.
Yes.
Clements.
Is this just on Arlington, Kinzer?
Yes.
Okay, so yes.
Copper,
Yes.
McKim,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Volin.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Wallman,
Yes.
13-0.
Thank you.
Approve DES number 2101785.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the board? Any public comment in person or online? I see no hands raised. Roll call vote, please.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Bannock,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Wallman. Wallman.
Yes.
Clements.
No.
Oh. Nickel,
Yes.
McKim,
Yes.
Samples,
Yes.
Volin,
Yes.
Reiderbrand,
Yes.
Ridge,
Yes.
Copper,
Yes.
Horn.
Yes.
12-1.
Thank you. Moving on to new business, Bloomington, Monroe County MPO fiscal year 2022 to 2026, Transportation Improvement Program TIP amendments. The first item is DES number 1800086, State Road 45 from State Road 4546 bypass to Pete Ellis Drive.
This is an added travel lanes project, adds an added travel lane to that section. So that way it matches up with the next project, and the next project is the,
We're muted for some reason.
I'm sorry, I was told we were muted. Just a second. Just a second, we're working on the technical difficulty. Are we back? Okay, I'll start again. This project, DES number 1800086, Road 45 from the bypass to Pete Ellis Drive. This adds an additional travel lane to the corridor. This is so that it matches up with the next project, DES number 1800199, the State Road 45 intersection of Pete Ellis Drive. This project, this 00086, was a bench project. In other words, they did not have the funding for this project prior to this time. That's why it's being added in. And the idea here is to match the schedule up for this development so that way that schedule matches seamlessly with the State Road 45 intersection of Pete Ellis Drive. And then I'll stop from there and I'll let Chris Wallman add anything to that.
You know, like you said, Pat, it's just to get everything lined up. We do have, that 086 DES number was a bench project. We have since funded that with some of our own discretionary money that we have in the district. So that is an active project at this time. So that is funded. And so it's just to get both these in the STIP so we can deliver these in year 25.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have any questions for these two projects? Jeff?
Is the bid letting for both of those still scheduled for August 24?
That's still the plan.
Thank you. Very important projects for the east side, and there'll be a follow-on, I guess, that'll go further east from Pete Ellis to, or from where the extension of the extent of the Pete Ellis project to Russell Road. And I look forward to seeing that as well.
Yeah, the follow-up going further east, that's still a bench project. So it's still a provisional project. But it should be funded somewhere in that window between 25 and 27.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I have comment, a question, and then a follow-up question. Sorry, but not sorry. So comment is, I'm glad to see this is moving forward. This is good news. My first question is, these are being funded in 2 separate years, so these are really considered, even though they're on the same roadway, 2 separate projects. So there's going to be construction and then potentially a break and then more construction.
Is the question about the 2 DES numbers before you?
Yes.
They should both be in 25.
Okay.
So they would let together. They would let together as one big project.
Okay, great. All right, that makes sense. Because I've seen it listed in both and I wasn't sure how that worked. Okay, thank you. And then, so is there any image that we could see or look at which explains or demonstrates first what the intersection at Pete Ellis and 10th Street would look like, and where that travel lane is, why 1, not 2?
So the current plans are from the bypass to Pete Ellis, we would be adding a travel lane each direction. And that travel lane drops at the Pete Ellis intersection with State Road 45. And so on each leg of the intersection at Pete Ellis and State Road 45, there will be a dedicated left turn lane, dedicated right turn lane, and a through lane. We are still working through getting a public information meeting, public hearing set up, so we can bring all this to the public, so we can have a broader discussion about the project and get that information out there.
Okay, so we don't know, it sounds like so travel lanes in going both directions on 10th Street.
Excuse me?
Travel lanes will be added in both directions on 10th Street between Pete Ellis and the bypass.
Eastbound only.
Correct.
Okay, great. And then when you bring this to the public, is this for public input on the traffic control device that will be at Pete Ellis and 10th?
It's for public input upon the whole project. So
All the way east?
it will be to the easternmost limits of the intersection at Pete Ellis.
Okay, so for this particular project. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. So is there any opportunity potentially, and I'm going to throw this out there as something I would really like to see, because this project does not just end at Pete Ellis, it goes to Smith and then it goes to Russell Road. Is there an opportunity to have a discussion now while we can still get input to INDOT about the intersection at Smith and 10th, and then also what's going to happen further east? Is that
that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea. That's something we might incorporate into our public meeting, is to maybe have another area when we set up, to have, if you got input on this other project that's coming up. While you're there, let's get your comments. So, yeah.
I would so appreciate it, and thank you for considering that. That would be a huge benefit, because anybody that's going to come in about that one leg of the project is certainly most likely going to be interested in the other piece of it. And I know that planning takes a long time, so thank you for considering that. And if you could keep me posted, I would really appreciate it.
Will do.
Thank you, Julie. Steve?
Mr. Wallman, I want to follow up on Commissioner Thomas's question. You said that's a good idea, but I mean, I think what she was asking was when and where can there be input on the next phase of the project, namely how Smith will be how the intersection at Smith will be designed? Like what is the schedule for it? When and where do we weigh in?
So you're talking about east of Pete Ellis?
Sure. I mean, I'm just following up on what she said. Like, if the project is contemplated by NDOT, if you're thinking about it, when will that opportunity come?
We've got a DES number created. We are actively finalizing a preliminary scope, and so it would be a good time to also get that input, like Commissioner Thomas said, while we're there. So.
When do you think that's going to be?
Currently, it's like I said, it's a provisional project, so it's going to fit into a window. And so it was a provisional project for 25. It got kind of a late start. I will be quite honest that it's be very much a challenge to get that leg of the corridor caught up with everything else. So it will probably be after fiscal year 25 is my guess. I don't think we've got enough time, but we might, I don't know. I do think we'll have maybe some right-of-way impacts and that could slow us down, so.
Well, so just to be clear then, you're saying that, number one, that NDOT does or does not have interest in expanding that part of the corridor? Is NDOT looking to change it, or is it something that we're requesting at a local level?
We have a DES number, 2,231, from pretty much Pete Ellis to Russell Road. That is an active development.
Okay.
So NDOT is currently looking at that. And
okay, so NDOT is looking at that. That's clear. Thank you. But I think her question was when, and what I'm hearing you saying is that the soonest that we might, while NDOT may get to it sooner, we may not be talking about the design of the project until 2025. Did I hear you correctly?
we have a designer on board. Okay.
What do you say?
It's currently showing as a fiscal 25 letting. I'm saying it's very unlikely it'll meet that date because, we're just now wrapping up preliminary scoping. So with additional right-of-way that needs to be acquired, it'd be very challenging to meet that fiscal year 25 timeframe.
Okay, I wasn't suggesting that it would be let in 25. I'm just, again, trying to understand what you just told Commissioner Thomas.
We're planning on it to let in 25. The plan is to let that portion between fiscal 25 and fiscal year 27. That's where it's kind of guaranteed funding in one of those 3 fiscal years.
Okay, so then I'll just reiterate her question one more time, which was, when do you think we might be able to weigh in on the design of that area? When's the soonest we should expect as an MPO to have some input on the design of that portion of the project, of that DES number?
I believe the design was funded with PE funds initially because it was a provisional project. So I'm not sure when we will get the next amendment or the amendment for that DES number. I don't know when to tell you when that will be.
Do you think it'll be in 2023? Will we talk about it this year, or is it going to be next year at the earliest?
Possibly. I really can't. I couldn't tell you, Steve. I don't know.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. But I think you were saying also at the public hearing for these 2 DES numbers that were presented today, that might be an ample time for someone with questions about design for that future phase that could be brought up at that public hearing, correct?
Certainly.
Okay. Jeff?
Thank you. I apologize. I may have misheard your response, Mr. Wallman, to Commissioner Thomas's question. My understanding is that there's only an eastbound travel lane that's going to be added and not an additional westbound travel lane. That's what we've been told in the past. Did I hear you say that there was going to be an additional travel lane in both directions? Because I think there was originally a plan for a travel lane in both directions, but the one in the westbound lane was eliminated to match what's the same profile of the road west of the bypass.
I was under the impression there were two, but you are correct in that it does kind of drop off there to where we have two dedicated left turn lanes westbound. Is that what the question was?
Yeah, but you're not actually adding a westbound additional travel lane, correct?
Yes, you're correct. I misspoke.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
In the current project or in the future
One additional travel lane?
My understanding is that there's one additional travel lane going east and no additional travel lane going west. That's what we had been communicated. I think Ms. Walker from...
Are you talking about DES 199? Or the
Yes, 199.
Commissioner Thomas has her hand raised.
Julie?
Yeah, that's why I asked about travel lane in both directions. I can foresee that this is going to be a mess based on current traffic related to the hospital, IU, and University Elementary from further east up the road. This intersection right now is a disaster waiting to happen, and really would encourage as much as possible to think about traffic safety here, and how you would winnow down to, as you're heading into town, if you're going from if you're going to one lane but 2 lanes going east, I guess I just don't. I guess I just don't see how this is really going to benefit in opening up traffic at all without having one added lane in each direction. And I know I've seen both communicated, 1 lane added versus 2 lanes added, and it seems the most recent was 1 lane added, which is why I asked on one side and no lanes added on the other. It doesn't seem to be addressing the issue of traffic congestion. So if there's any way to look at that, I'm certainly going to support this because we need to get this work done. But I think at some point in the very near future, if we don't do it now, we're going to have to do it again. And if you could look at that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'm going to say I actually think the design does address the safety issues and traffic issues that Commissioner Thomas is talking about, because the increase in traffic volume isn't necessarily going east-west. It's what's coming from Discovery Parkway and Pete Ellis. And although there's only going to be 1 additional travel lane going east-west, they're going to coordinate with turn lanes going south onto Pete Ellis and north onto Discovery, which is exactly what the problem is now, is that the turn lanes are not coordinated with the traffic lanes. And so I think that this design is going to address the problems there without inducing a whole bunch of additional demand.
Steve?
Well, just to be clear, the whole time we've been discussing this, I've been trying to figure out what we're talking about. And if I understand it correctly, we're talking about 10th Street up to Pete Ellis Drive, and Commissioner Thomas is talking about the potential next leg of development, which Mr. Wallman has said they are actively considering, but it's still way in the consideration phase. I get Ms. Thomas's concern about getting input in as soon as possible, but I just don't know if this is the right opportunity to make such statements. So, I mean, that's what I was asking Mr. Wallman, is when would be the appropriate time for Ms. Thomas to make sure that input is heard by INDOT? Mr. Wallman?
I'm having a hard time with the question, Steve. You mean as far as an amendment is made, or just having a conversation with NDOT?
I mean, is this the conversation with INDOT? Is what we're having right now, is this it? Or is there some other future event where the designers of the intersection are, I mean, I enjoy talking with you, Chris. I'm just saying, I don't get how this process works, you know. When is the appropriate time? When do we have the ears of the people designing the streets?
Well, typically, very early on, we will get with the local municipality within where we're working, especially if we're in an urban area such as this.
Right.
So we would typically get a meeting, since this is mostly in the city, with the city. In this case, I think Russell Road, I think that's the boundary, right, with the county.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt to have both at the table, I think, in this one.
Actually, it's not the boundary with the county because the city is in the county, but it's the boundary of the city limits. That's right.
City limits of the county, yes.
Yeah. So.
I'm just talking jurisdiction, yes.
Yeah. So, I guess I have a question for Commissioner Thomas, which is when you talk about traffic safety, I mean, I've seen that in the project we're voting on now, they've included sidewalk side paths. So if pedestrians and bicyclists are accommodated by this design, what other traffic safety concerns do you have? Because I know that that was one of the big concerns, the big factors that you were concerned about before. Could you help me understand your concern?
Yeah, so all due respect, Mr. Vaughn, my last comment was about this project that is before us. It is not about the future project. Having one added travel lane is not going to be sufficient because there are 2 huge apartment complexes being added just up the street. Those folks are going to be turning where? Probably on to 10th Street from Pete Ellis. So I think my point is that I don't think it's great to add the amenities to ensure pedestrian and bicycle safety and other modes of transit. Hopefully in the next leg there'll be a bus stop, but I'm focused right now on this DES number,
Okay.
the 2 numbers that are in front of us regarding 10th Street and where it intersects with Pete Ellis.
Thank you for
between, the bypass and Pete Ellis. That's all I'm talking about.
Thank you for clarifying. That makes it, that's clearer to me.
So, but I am concerned that adding 1 travel lane is not sufficient here. We need
Okay.
2 travel lanes.
Well,
That's my comment. Thank you.
thank you. That's what I'm trying to understand. So you're saying that simply because there will be an increase in traffic volume at this intersection that is actively under consideration right now, that is the primary reason why you're concerned about safety?
I'm concerned about not having enough roadway width to accommodate the additional traffic on 10th Street between Pete Ellis and 4546.
Thank you. Thank you.
Margaret?
Yes, I just would like to point out kind of a laywoman's observation about an irony in that we are designing to take people away from town rather than to bring them in. And that doesn't seem to me to be like a great public investment or great use of public funds. And I agree then that the second westbound lane is really important. We hopefully are designing our roadways so that we are navigating people toward us instead of away from us. So with that, I just would like to support everything that Commissioner Thomas has said, and also that this is a primary example of how county has been trying to get the attention of city planning on this very project for years now, years. And despite our best efforts and besides our continued follow-up, our wishes, our desires, our concerns on behalf of the residents of the people who live in the county are not heard, and it's by design. So that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
I have to respectfully disagree with my county colleagues. Where is that, if an additional westbound lane were added, where would that traffic go? The 10th Street is still one lane, or still 2 lanes on the west side of the bypass, unless we're just if we're talking about bringing people into town, then that wouldn't make any sense. Otherwise, we're just talking about routing more people to the north on the bypass. And I don't know what that would get us. Even though there probably will be more traffic on Pete Ellis, it's still also 2-lane. So I'm not, and Discovery Parkway is 2-lane. So I'm not sure what an additional westbound traffic lane would actually get us. I think what we really need is all those turn lanes going on to Discovery and Pete Ellis. That's where the pretty serious safety situation is right now, where people going westbound into town are piled up at Pete Ellis, while others who want to go straight into town then move around to the right and create a kind of a race condition with the traffic that's sitting there at the light. I know it'd probably be more helpful with a map, but I guess my point is I definitely support DES 86 and 199. I think they're very important projects, and I would hate to see them delayed.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other comments, questions? Sarah?
Yeah, I guess I would just I appreciate Ms. Clemens invoking the notion of bringing people into our town rather than away. It's important to me. There's an echo, so I don't know who is not muted online. So it's wonderful. However, I want to remind her that when she is saying that this is the city's fault somehow, I want to remind her that these are state roads. The city is not responsible for these roads. Imploring the city to do something about this over and over again makes no difference, since this is indeed state highway and the state controls these roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Steve?
I want to sort of address what I've heard today too. I don't understand exactly what the, frankly, obsession with this street is, because it's not about traffic safety. I think that those two words have been put together by people who are agitating for a bigger expansion of 10th Street, but traffic is not inherently dangerous. And the safety issues that I've heard about have all been about people who are forced to walk or bike along a road that has no accommodations for them. And one thing that I'm gathering from the proposal is that there will be accommodations for bicycling and walking, in addition to a modest expansion of capacity, one that would also improve the intersection so that traffic flows better. If there is an issue of safety, I beg those people who are invoking it to be more explicit about what they think is inherently unsafe, because what I'm gathering is the actual complaint, and as I've heard Ms. Clements say just now, is that the objection isn't to safety, the objection is to the increase in traffic created by the expansion of the city. I can be as upset about the movement of the hospital to the bypass as anybody, but I think, and I've not been shy about saying this before, this is a critique of the city's approval of projects like the Curry project at 7th and Longview or the Kmart project, and that those buildings will inherently increase traffic, and that therefore we have to expand the roads in order to accommodate traffic. I disagree. I disagree fundamentally with that idea. I think that at worst, what this is going to do is inspire more people to drive, but it's not going to decrease safety. But if the other problem with even expanding with one lane is that if you do that, you show drivers, oh, maybe it's easier to drive now. I think I'm going to take my car, where before I would have looked for another way to go. So, with all due respect to the concerns of my colleagues outside the city, this is the jurisdiction of the city, the decision to make those plans. And the MPO is not a particularly good tool for objecting to city planning designs. And, I would say that this, I support this project as it is, even though I would just as soon not expand it as much as it's being expanded. But because it's going to improve the intersection and it's going to provide more clear actual infrastructure for bicyclists and pedestrians, that's good enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Jeff?
This discussion isn't going anywhere. I'd like to just move on if nobody else objects. But
do we want to vote on these individually instead of going through all 6 projects since they're different entities? That's how I would suggest doing that.
Let's do them all together.
Do them all together?
Yes.
Okay. So we will move on to item 3, DUNS number 1900405, Liberty Drive connection to Cars Farm Trail. I do want to just make a comment on this as being the LPA for the project that was submitted. When the CRP funds became available, we did work with the city of Bloomington, worked great. We pretty well split those funds to utilize a city project, county projects. Monroe County had originally submitted the CRP funds for the Vernal Pike Connector project. During that time, the project, Vernal Pike Connector Road, went to bid letting on February 10th, and it was unawardable due to the cost. So it's been moved to a new fiscal year in October. The CRP funds are to be used in 2023 fiscal year, to my knowledge. We turned around and resubmitted the Liberty Drive connection in place of the Vernal Pike Connector and withdrew that one, but utilizing the same amount of funds and the city using the other remaining funds in the city project. So I just want to put that out there before there was discussion, and I think there was some question about that. Questions from the board on this project?
Which one?
1900405. Liberty Drive connection to Cars Farm Trail. Anybody on Zoom? Yes, Neil?
I think I understood. I just want to restate that the CRP that had previously been added into Vernal Pike is being removed, and that exact same amount of funding is being added into the Liberty project, and we're treating this approval as just moving those funds over. There's no new funds being added.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Questions online? Okay, seeing no questions on this project. Item 4, I just want to make sure, I have one agenda that 2201588, is that on, was that on a?
Madam Chair, that one was pulled.
Okay, I want to make sure I had it printed
I'm
before
sorry.
it was pulled. That's fine.
Well, it was pulled this morning.
Okay.
And sometimes we post these agendas up to 10 times. This one was posted something like 6 or 7 times. And I was informed this morning by Indiana Department of Transportation, Seymour District, this one was pulled because it's being done with 100% state money instead of federal money.
Okay.
So that's why we bypassed that.
Didn't want to miss one.
Yeah, that's why we bypass it. It's in the packet, but it's not on the agenda. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4 is Bloomington 23-004, Bloomington 24-004, BLO 25-004, BLO 25-004, Bloomington Transit 40-foot replacement battery electric buses, charging stations, and installation. Questions or comments from the board? Any questions? Sarah?
Sorry, the only question I have is how we're going to charge all of these buses. And I don't know that we have anyone here from BT that could help me with that. The charging of, these are all electric buses that we're bringing in, is that correct?
Yeah, this project.
A big charging station is obviously going to be necessary, I believe.
There are individual chargers for each individual bus.
Okay.
And so the 4 buses would have 4 individual charging stations and the installation of 4 individual charging stations.
So that's included in?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yeah.
That's what I needed to know.
Yeah, each electric bus is somewhere in the vicinity of $1.2 million. Then there's the hidden cost, what I would call the software for the hardware. And that's the installation of the charging stations and the charging stations themselves, yes. And those take up considerable space. We'll get to that at a future time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all this is. All 3 of these projects, I might add, to the Indiana Department of Transportation Office of Public Transit asked that we bring these before you in a formal manner, even though we had submitted this information to them in October of last year. They asked us to do a redo, so we're doing a redo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm not seeing any questions online. Oh, sure.
Well, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Public Transit Corporation, really appreciate your support on this. As Pat said, it's something of an anomaly, but we desperately need your support for this to move forward at this point, so thank you.
Steve?
Mr. Horn, why is it an anomaly?
In that it's coming back. It's the request from the state to come back.
It's coming back?
Back to us for consideration.
You mean we had already approved it and we're having to approve it again?
Pat might be able to.
Mr. Martin?
We had approved these as modifications in the Transportation Improvement Program, submitted that documentation to the Office of Public Transit, INDOT's Office of Transit in October. Somehow or another it was overlooked, and so they've asked us to redo it again, this time in the formal manner, and we said we would, since it involves a considerable amount of money. I mean, the first one was originally in the 2022-2026 Transportation Improvement Program. The second one was also, but it was added to in terms of we're adding funds for bus stop accessibility improvements. And then the third one was the discretionary award given to the City of Bloomington to Bloomington Transit in August of last year, announced by the U.S. Department of Transportation. This was the national discretionary award for, I believe, 7 buses. Is that right? 8 buses. Thank you. For 8 buses. And we considered that an administrative modification because that was an award that came from Washington, D.C. They viewed it differently. So therefore, they asked if we kindly do this as a presentation to the board as formal amendments, and we said that we would, since it involves $12-13 million.
Well, I just want to say that let's hear it for more funding, MPO discussion of public transit. Delighted that we get a chance to weigh in on this. Mr. Horn, can I ask, are these buses specifically for the bus rapid transit line that's being contemplated? Do you know?
The order is being placed in 2 separate sub-orders, and designation specifically for each bus has not been communicated to us, but we do have the obligation of that new route that the entire motor pool would be available for.
If it's the case and it's not simply, because I know that we haven't been able to replace all our buses because of the 10th Street underpass, but if it's what I think it is, this is a bus route that may well be the first one that winds up going outside the city. The bus rapid transit route, I know that the council in this room approved a resolution saying that with appropriate compensation, that the council would endorse the extension of transit to locations outside the city limits, in particular Daniels Way. So I'm excited if any of these buses wind up being one of the first ones on that route. I'm glad that I'll have had another opportunity to weigh in on it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I did ask the question recently if Bloomington Transit would be ever purchasing another diesel piece of equipment of this size. And you never say never, but that was as close to never as I've heard. So,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're going this
yeah.
way. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Horn. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Right.
Move to approve the tip amendments as written.
Wait, have we finished them all?
Did you want to talk about just present the last two?
Oh,
Item number 5, BLO 22-005, BLO 23-005, BLO 24-005, and BLO 26-005, Bloomington Transit Bus Stop Accessibility Improvements. Any questions or comments on item number 5?
Is there a presentation?
Madam Chair, I just might say these are just new shelters, replacement shelters, because of some of the existing shelters are at the end of their existing life or they didn't exist at all. And what this does is places those out there in the highest volumes area.
Thanks, Pat. The next item, BLO 23-006, Bloomington Transit Fixed Route Service Expansion, Electric Vehicles, Charging Stations, and Installation.
And again, this is a discretionary award, national discretionary award, which Bloomington Transit won big, with 8 zero-emission battery electric buses. These are programmed for the current fiscal year 23, and then these are already on order, I believe, and then the delivery would be in approximately a year to year and a half from now.
Thank you, Pat. Any questions on those? Steve?
I think these might be the buses that might be for that new route. It might be these buses. Thank you. Because it's a service expansion.
So do we have a motion?
I move to approve all amendments as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Any more comment, questions from the board? Any public comment? I am not seeing any hands raised on the screens. Roll call vote, please.
Clemens.
Yes.
Horn.
Yes.
Nickel.
Yes.
Reiterban.
yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Wallman. Wallman.
Yes.
Bolin.
Yes.
Ridge.
Yes.
Bannock.
Yes.
Kinsey.
Yes.
Samples.
Yes.
McKim.
Yes.
Copper.
Yes.
13-0.
Thank you. Next item is public comment on matters not included on the agenda, limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Not seeing anybody in the chambers, and I don't see anybody's hand raised on the screen. Communications from committee members on matters not included on the agenda. Communications or topic suggestions for future agendas. Julie?
Yeah, I just want to request again the addition of page numbers to the table of contents on the agendas. That would be really helpful. Thank you.
I might note they're already there. Over in the right-hand, well, at the bottom of each page. Oh, a table of contents, I'm sorry. We added, yeah. Okay, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we added the Bates numbering system this time. Those are on the lower right-hand corner of each one of the pages, but yeah, we can add a table of contents also.
Thank you.
Sure.
We do have upcoming meetings. The Technical Advisory Committee is March 22nd at 10. Citizens Advisory is March 22nd at 6:30. I believe the Policy Committee is April 14th.
April 14th, this is an
Okay.
Scrivener error.
At 1:30, and these are all hybrid meetings. I guess the last would be adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.